I got a call I never expected, one that froze me right where I stood. My neighbor said a man had pulled a gun on my son, not out in some dark alley or shady part of town, but right here, in our quiet, cookie-cutter neighborhood. The kind of place where people argue about lawn height and parking spots, not life-and-death situations. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. My son's calm, respectful, and doesn't go looking for trouble. But the voice on the phone was shaky. Something had gone down. What that man didn't know, what he couldn't have possibly known, is that my son isn't just some guy walking down the street. He's a highly trained Special Forces veteran, not loud, not flashy, but always ready. And yes, he was armed that day. He didn't start anything, but he sure wasn't going to be a victim either. Let's just say Mr. HOA badge and sidearm had no clue who he was messing with. And by the time it was over, the power in that moment had flipped fast, real fast. We live in one of those quiet suburban neighborhoods where everything looks picture perfect on the outside. Lawns stay trimmed, driveways are clean, and people wave as they walk their dogs. But underneath that, there's this strange pressure to keep up appearances. Our HOA is the kind that takes itself way too seriously. They're the self-appointed rulers of what kind of mailbox you can have, or how many inches your trash can stick out past your garage. If your grass grows just a little too long, you're getting an email about it. Not even a warning, a full-on complaint with photos attached. Everyone mostly keeps to themselves, but you can feel the eyes. Some neighbors peek out their windows like it's a full-time job. You'd think they were guarding Fort Knox instead of watching someone bring in groceries. My son had just come back home. He'd been away for a while, doing things he doesn't talk much about. I'm proud of him, always have been. He's not the kind of guy who brags or tries to act tough. He just wanted to take it easy, spend time with family, maybe fix up his truck, and enjoy a bit of peace and quiet. But peace and quiet don't always last long around here, especially when someone with a clipboard and a little bit of power decides to act like a cop. My son's 28 now. He joined the military right out of high school and ended up in Special Forces. He's been through things most people couldn't even imagine, stuff he doesn't talk about. And honestly, I don't ask. I just know he's seen places and done things that most of us never will, and probably shouldn't. As a parent, that's hard to sit with. You're proud, of course, but deep down you just want them safe. You want them home. And now, finally, he was. He came back a few weeks ago. No big announcement, no parade, just showed up with a couple duffel bags and that steady, quiet look he always has. He's the kind of guy who doesn't say much unless it needs to be said. Doesn't show off. You'd never know what he's capable of just by looking at him. But there's a calmness to him. Like he's already thought through every outcome before you've even figured out what's happening. All he wanted was a break. Time to breathe. Fix his old truck, help around the house, maybe have a beer on the porch in the evening. No drama, no nonsense. But even though he's home, that part of him that was trained to stay ready, it never really shuts off. He's not paranoid, just prepared. Always alert, always paying attention, even when he's smiling. That's how he's built now. And that's exactly what helped him stay cool when everything went sideways. It started out like any other quiet afternoon. My son was out front, working on his truck. He had the hood up, a couple of gear bags sitting nearby, nothing out of the ordinary. One of the bags was military style, the kind with straps and pouches all over it. He had some tools laid out and a bottle of water sitting on the bumper. No noise, no mess, just him doing his thing. It was the kind of peaceful moment you don't really think twice about. Until someone else does. I guess one of the neighbors saw him from across the street. Maybe the gear bag looked tactical enough to make them nervous, or maybe they just didn't recognize him and decided he didn't belong. Who knows? Either way, they didn't bother to come over or say anything. Instead, they called it in, to the HOA. And that's when this guy showed up. Not a real cop, just some self-important guy on the HOA board who apparently thinks wearing a badge and a radio makes him law enforcement. He came marching down the sidewalk with a walkie-talkie clipped to his chest and a sidearm on his hip like he was about to raid a drug house, not walk into a driveway. Chest puffed out, sunglasses on, like he was starring in some action movie only he knew about. My son saw him coming but didn't say a word. He just stood there, wiping his hands on a rag, waiting. He already knew this was going to be one of those conversations, and he was right. The guy looked like he took himself way too seriously. Middle-aged, maybe in his early 50s, sunglasses on, tight polo shirt tucked into cargo pants, and that chest puffed out like he was trying to look twice as big as he actually was. He had a clipboard in one hand, and the other resting way too close to the sidearm on his belt. You could tell he'd been waiting for a moment like this was his big chance to feel important. Without even saying hello or asking what was going on, he jumped straight into it. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice loud enough for the neighbors to hear. My son looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "Just working on my truck." That wasn't good enough, apparently. The guy pointed at the gear bag and said it looked suspicious. Started asking for ID, proof of address, the whole deal, like he had any right to do that. My son didn't argue. He didn't get loud. He just stood there, still and steady, like a wall. He told the man he lived here, that he was staying with his parents, and that he wasn't doing anything wrong. He didn't raise his voice once. No attitude, just facts. But that only seemed to make the guy angrier. He started pacing a little, acting like he was calling someone on his radio. "Sir, this is a private community," he said, like he was reading off a script. "I have authority here. You need to comply." He said that word, comply, like it gave him power, like saying it made him something more than just a guy with a badge from a homeowner's board. And still my son didn't move. He knew exactly what kind of man he was dealing with. He'd seen this before. Guys who wanted control more than they wanted truth. Then the moment shifted. You could feel it in the air, like everything slowed down just a little. The HOA guy moved his hand to his hip, right near the gun he probably wasn't even supposed to have on him. He didn't pull it fast, but just enough to make it clear he was willing to go there. And that was all it took. The air went tight, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. 1 second earlier, it was just an annoying back and forth. Now, it was something else, something serious. My son didn't move, didn't flinch. He froze, not because he was scared, but because he was reading the situation. That's what he was trained for. One wrong move, and this guy might do something stupid. So instead of reacting, he held steady, eyes on the man's hands, calm, focused, and ready. Then he spoke. His voice was even. Not loud, not threatening, just real clear. "Sir, I'm going to advise you to put that away before this turns bad, for you." And the way he said it, not angry, not shaking, just firm. You knew he meant every word. He didn't step forward. Didn't reach for his own weapon, even though I later found out he had one on him, legally. He didn't need to. His whole body said it for him. Feet planted, shoulders relaxed, hands loose at his sides. But his eyes? His eyes were locked in. That kind of stillness only comes from training. Real training. The kind most people wouldn't even understand. The HOA guy wasn't dealing with some random guy in a driveway. He was facing someone who'd been in real situations. And whether he realized it or not, he was one breath away from making the biggest mistake of his life. After a long, tense pause, my son finally moved. But slow, controlled, like everything he did was calculated. He reached into his jacket just enough to pull it open and show what was clipped inside. A badge. Real, government issued, nothing fake about it. And next to it, his credentials. He didn't wave it around or throw it in the guy's face, just enough to let him see the truth. "I'm fully certified to carry," he said quietly, "and I've had more training than you'll ever know. You pointed a weapon at someone who not only has the legal right to defend himself, but knows exactly how to do it." The way he said it, it wasn't a threat. It wasn't even angry. It was matter of fact, but the weight of those words hit like a punch. You could see the shift in the HOA guy's face. That tough, puffed-up posture started to shrink. His hand moved away from the gun. No more barking orders. No more radio talk. He suddenly realized this wasn't some punk kid standing in a driveway. This was someone who could have ended that moment in 100 different ways, and had chosen not to. My son didn't need to raise his voice or even touch his weapon. He disarmed the man with nothing but words, and the calm truth of who he was. That's what real strength looks like. Not yelling, not showing off. Just standing there, in control, and letting someone figure out for themselves that they've seriously crossed a line. And that guy? You could tell he knew he messed up. Not just legally, but on a deeper level. He pointed a gun at the wrong person. And now, he had to live with what could have happened. Once the badge came out and the truth was on the table, the HOA guy started to stumble over his own words. He backed up a step, then tried to play it off like it was all a misunderstanding. Said he was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe and that things looked suspicious. But the damage was already done, and the way he said it, nervous, eyes darting, showed he knew he'd gone too far. By now, a few neighbors had come outside. Some were standing at a distance. Others had their phones out, recording the whole thing. You could see the looks on their faces. Some confused, some surprised, and a few who clearly knew this HOA guy had finally pushed things too far. My son didn't gloat, didn't rub it in. He just looked at him and said, calm as ever, "This could have ended badly, really badly. But I'm giving you grace right now. Take it." And that was it. No threats, no shouting. Just a reminder of how serious this could have been. The HOA guy didn't say much after that. He mumbled something about filing a report and turned to leave. You could tell he wanted to get out of there fast. Like maybe if he walked away quickly enough, people would forget what just happened. But they wouldn't. Not anytime soon. He came in swinging like he was in charge. He left quiet, humiliated, and probably thinking twice about ever trying to play hero again. After everything settled down, the thing that stuck with me most was how quickly something small can turn into something dangerous, all because someone wanted to feel in control. The HOA guy didn't see a neighbor. He didn't see a veteran or someone's son. He just saw a threat because of a bag and a calm man who didn't jump when he barked. That kind of thinking? That's how people get hurt. What my son showed that day wasn't just training, it was character. He could have reacted in so many ways, and he would have been within his rights to defend himself. But he chose to stay level. He chose to handle it with words, with presence, with patience. That takes more strength than any badge or weapon can give you. We filed a complaint with the HOA, not to stir things up, but because there needed to be accountability. You can't let people walk around acting like they're law enforcement just because they wear a polo with a patch on it. I don't know what came of it exactly, but I do know the man hasn't been around much since. The biggest lesson here? Respect people. Don't assume you know who someone is just by looking at them. And if you're given even a little bit of authority, don't use it to push others down. Use it to protect, to listen, and to learn when to back off. In the end, the guy wanted to play sheriff, but he ended up running into the real deal. My son didn't need to show off or raise his voice. He let the truth speak for itself. And watching that unfold, it reminded me that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you really don't want to mess with. I know we're not the only ones with crazy HOA stories. If you've got one, drop it in the comments. I want to hear how wild it gets in your neighborhood. And hey, if this made you think twice about who's really in control, or just made you shake your head like I did, hit that like button. Stick around. We've got more stories that'll have you saying, "No way that really happened."